Hello, your friendly neighborhood host, JT Wheatley here, back again for another History of Comic Books podcast. This time, the History of Horror Comics, Part 2. When we last left off, comic books had just gone through the new 1970s revival as characters like Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night by Marvel came out, and another popular horror character from this time period by Marvel was Man-Thing. He was part of the horror revival of the 1990s, who first appeared in Savage Tales #1 in 1971, created by Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, Jerry Conway, and Greg Morrow. He was originally conceived in a conversation between Lee and Thomas, with Lee coming up with the name, which had been previously used for an unrelated character in Tales of Suspense #7 back in January of 1960. His origin is that of Dr. Theodore Salas, who was working on a project in the Florida Everglades to replicate the super soldier serum that created Captain America. When he learns that the terrorist organization AIM is after it, Salas destroys his notes and escapes with the only sample of the serum, where he crashes his car in the Everglades and through a combination of serum and magical forces is turned into the plant-like Man-Thing, with little memory of his past life and the ability to secrete deadly acid when angry. The character would next appear in Astonishing Tales #12 and 13 by Lynn Wein and Neil Adams. Eventually, Man-Thing would get his own series with Adventures into Fear #10, with Steve Gerber taking over the writing chores with issue #11. Gerber's run would be considered the definitive take on the character, and would see other Marvel characters like the Howard the Duck and the Fool Killer introduced as well. Gerber would also introduce Man-Thing's classic tagline, "Whoever knows fear will burn at Man-Thing's touch," and also introduced in Adventures into Fear #11. After issue #19, Man-Thing would get his own series, The Man-Thing, for 22 issues from January of 1974 to August of 1975, along with Giant-Sized Man-Thing #1 through 5 from August 1974 to August 1975. The unintentional double entendre in that title became a classic joke among readers. Man-Thing would get a second 11-issue miniseries from November 1979 to January of 1981, along with numerous one-shots and guest appearances throughout Marvel, along with a 2005 movie, but the less said about that one, the better. Outside of adapting classic horror vampires like Dracula into Marvel, the company also created its own with Morbius, the living vampire, who first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man #101 on October of 1971, created by Roy Thomas and Jill Kane. Originally Dr. Michael Morbius, he was a brilliant Nobel Prize-winning biologist with a rare blood disease. Attempting to cure it with an experiment involving vampire bites and electroshock therapy, he instead becomes the living vampire, one created by scientific over supernatural means, with the ability to fly, super strength, and a thirst for blood. Morbius would soon get his own series in Vampire Tales on 1973 and Adventures into Fear with #20 on February of 1974, which he starred in until the series ended with issue #31 on December of 1975. He would get sporadic guest appearances throughout the years, till finally getting his own regular series, Morbius the Living Vampire, in September of 1992, which ran for 32 issues before being cancelled on April of 1995. Since then, Morbius has been regularly appeared throughout Marvel Comics as well. Another classic monster adapted for Marvel was The Living Mummy, created by Steve Gerber and Rich Buckler, who first appeared in Supernatural Thrillers #5 on 1973 and soon had a continuing stories with #7. His character was Nkanto, a African tribesman from 3,000 years ago, who, after being captured and placed into slavery in Egypt, tried to lead a revolt, only to be paralyzed and mummified in the process. Awakening in modern day, he goes on a rampage from being buried for over 3,000 years. As a result of the mystical mummification process, Nkanto now has the superhuman strength and invulnerability, along with the ability to use magic. He has made sporadic appearances in Marvel since, including working with Nick Fury at S.H.I.E.L.D. A horror-based superhero was Brother Voodoo, who first appeared in Strange Tales #169 to 173 by Lynn Wein, John Romita Sr., and Stan Lee. Lee originally proposed the idea of a voodoo-based superhero, with then editor-in-chief Wein suggesting the name Dr. Voodoo. Lee immediately countered with Brother Voodoo, and then had Lynn Wein and John Romita Sr. work out the details. He was originally Jericho Drum, a Haitian-born American psychologist who returns to his home country only to discover his twin brother Daniel is dying. As a dying wish, Jericho goes on to train under Daniel's mentor, Papa Jamba, who teaches him to master the voodoo practices, and as a result is able to raise Daniel's spirit from the dead to merge with his own. Jericho soon uses the mastery of voodoo to fight evil and has become another sporadic Marvel character, even taking up the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme from Doctor Strange at one point. However, one thing that limited the original stories was that while the CCA had loosened the restrictions on horror tales, the word zombies was still forbidden, so they had to use the word zombies, though readers knew what they were talking about. True to American comic books' Jewish roots, the Golem also appeared in Strange Tales number 174 by Lynn Wein and John Buscema. True to the character's mythological origins, he is a 16th century clay statue animated by Judah Lo ben Gazil to protect the Jewish people of Prague. He would later be reanimated in modern day by Professor Abraham Adamson, whose life force is used when he dies. Golem has occasionally made appearances in Marvel since then, most notably as part of the revived Howling Commandos. Another werewolf superhero created by Marvel was Man-Wolf, who first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 123 to 124, who was the son of John Jonah Jameson III. He would later get his own series in Creatures on the Loose number 30 to 73. Jameson became a wolf from a strange ruby he acquired while on a mission to the moon as an astronaut. As a result, he became the villainous Man-Wolf and occasionally resurfaces throughout Marvel. On top of other monsters, zombies were also a monster adapted into comics with Tales of the Zombie, a series that ran for 10 issues from August of 1973 to March of 1975, with an additional annual comic. Written by Steve Gerber with art by Pablos Marcos, it features stories of Simon Garf, the Zombie, a character previously created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett in Menace number 5 on July of 1953, who was transformed into a zombie due to a voodoo ritual. Being a black and white magazine over a comic, Tales of the Zombie avoided the CCA and thus the regulations, allowing for profanity, nudity, and even gore, along with actually being able to use the word zombie. After the series' end, Simon Garf would regularly appear throughout Marvel, including becoming part of the Howling Commandos in the 2000s. Scarecrow also appeared in Marvel, first in Tales of Suspense number 51 in March of 1964, created by Stan Lee and Don Heck, and later in Dead of Night number 2 in 1975. He originally Ebenezer Lawton, a circus performer and contortionist who turns to crime. Scarecrow was originally human just until after battling Ghost Rider, he is killed by being impaled on a pitchfork, only to be resurrected and becoming a member of the undead. Despite his similarity to the DC villain of the same name, Scarecrow continues to make sporadic appearances throughout Marvel to this day. Of interesting note, during the Marvel vs. DC crossover of the 1990s, both Scarecrows of each company teamed up to kidnap Lois Lane, and the Amalgam series, they were actually combined. Long before Stephen King's classic novel, a monster called It appeared in Astonishing Tales number 21 to 24 in 1973, which was a 100-foot flying man controlled by special effects man Bob O'Brien. However, the mad Dr. Vault soon discovers that he's dying. He can transfer his mind into It. Written by Tony Isabella, it came off as a charming ripoff of Japanese monster movies. However, after a few years, Marvel would get a shot at the real thing. One of the most notable licensed characters for Marvel was Godzilla, King of Monsters, based on the classic Japanese monster movie. However, when Marvel acquired the license, they realized they only got, after the fact, it was only just for Godzilla, and none of the other monsters or characters. As a result, writer Doug Moench and artist Herb Trimpe placed Godzilla in the Marvel Universe, having the monster escape from a frozen iceberg, then crossing the continental U.S. before stopping in New York City. There, Godzilla would meet Nick Fury and the Champions in issue number 3, along with the Fantastic Four, Devil Dinosaur, and Moon Boy, the Avengers, and even Spider-Man, who cameoed in the last issue. He also got a rival in Red Ronin, a giant robot created by Marvel just for the series. After Marvel lost the rights to Godzilla, they would change his appearance and name to keep using the monster, while Red Ronin also makes appearances, notably in Earth X miniseries in 1999. Chamber in Darkness in 1969 was an anthology series hosted by Headstone P. Gravely and The Digger, who would move on to get their own series in Tower of Shadows in 1969. Supernatural Thrillers came out in 1972 with issue number 2 introducing the Invisible Man. Chamber of Chills also came out that same year, and later Giant-Sized Chillers was released in 1975, originally titled Chilling Chills and replacing Marvel Chiller. Other Marvel horror comics were Monsters on the Prowl and Journey into Mystery, which only lasted for 5 issues. DC joined the horror revival of the 1970s with The House of Mystery in 1968, featuring the stories like Eyes of the Basilisk in 184 and The Demon Within in 201. It became 100 pages with issue number 224 for 5 issues, and by issue number 254, it became an 80-page $1 comic, in which stories like I, Vampire in 290 were published, about vampires Andrew and Mary, who run the Blood Red Moon. The series would eventually end with issue number 321. House of Secrets in 1969 continued in the horror vein as well with issue number 81, though it eventually incorporated into Giant Size Unexpected. The Witching Hour was published in 1969 as well, hosted by a trio of witches, Mildred, Mordred, and Cynthia, though it failed to grab the young, hip audience of the time. The Unexpected was published in 1968, originally titled Tales of the Unexpected, and would become 100 pages by issue number 157. Soon it was a $1 comic book with issue number 189, but that would only last for 8 issues, with it returning to a normal-sized comic by issue number 196. Dark Mansion of the Forbidden Love was published in 1971, with the title changed to Forbidden Tales of the Dark Mansion by issue number 5. Issue number 6 is notable as it featured art by the legendary Jack Kirby. Sinister House's Secret Love was also published that same year, and it would have the name changed by issue number 5 as well, becoming Secrets of the Sinister House. Apparently, DC was not a fan of having love at the title. Ghost also was out in 1971 with issues number 93 introducing the character of Terry 13, who would go on to meet the Spectre in issue number 97. The series was eventually canceled by issue number 112. Weird War Tales was published in 1971 and notable for being edited by the great Joe Kubert, with Joe Orlando taking over by issue number 8. Then, by issue number 93, Len Wein took the reins in 1980, where he introduced the Creature Commandos by J.M. DeMatteis, a group of monsters who fought in World War II. Mike W. Barr would later take over the series with issue number 104. The Night Force premiered in 1982, who was first introduced in New Teen Titans number 21, created by the stalwart horror creators Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan. Ghostly Haunts was published in 1971, which was originally Ghostly Manor during the Silver Age of comic books. Winnie the Witch was the hostess and later Mr. Bones. It featured stories like The Man Who Haunted Satan in issue number 42. It would last for 58 issues. Ghost Manor also came out that same year, where Mr. Bones also hosting, and lasted 77 issues to 1984, where it became Ghostly Tales with issue number 91, before ultimately ending. Haunted was another horror comic of 1971, hosted by a tiny imp. It was later changed to Baron Werewolf's Haunted Library, issue number 21, now hosted by the Baron, a shaggy, bearded narrator. Midnight Tales was published in 1972, the brainchild of Wayne Howard. Credited by the creator, it was narrated by Cyrus Coffin, a.k.a. the Midnight Philosopher, and his niece, Arachne. By issue number 17, Coffin is killed by a vampire, with the series ending by number 18. Haunted Love was published by 1973, only lasting for 11 issues, while Monster Hunters premiered in 1975, originally about a gang led by Colonel Whitestraw, before becoming an anthology series. It would go on hiatus in number 9, before going on again in 1977. Creepy Things came out in 1975, but only lasted for 6 issues, along with Beyond the Grave, which lasted for 16 issues. Scary Tales came out that same year, hosted by the red-haired Countess R.H. von Blood, lasting for 37 issues to 1983. Gold Key also published some horror books during the revival, with books like Grimm's Ghost Stories in 1972 and Dr. Spectre in 1973, which featured stories like Occult Files of Dr. Spectre, where he traveled the world with Lakota Rainflower. Atlas, the short-lived comic book company of the 1970s by Marvel founder Martin Goodman, also made some horror books. Among them was Weird Suspense, Tales of Evil, and The Brute, about a revived caveman, all which came out in 1975 but only lasted for 3 issues. One notable book was Morlock 2001, which only lasted for 3 issues as well, was a sci-fi series where individualities were repressed and had to fight human and plant monsters. The company also published Planet of Vampires and Fright, about the son of Dracula. DC published Weird Mystery Tales in 1972, which featured Jack Kirby doing the art for the first issue. Joe Orlando took over as editor with number 4, with the hosts being Eve and Destiny. The series only lasted for 24 issues. Another Atlas comic was Secrets of the Haunted House in 1975, which was hosted by Cain, Abel, Eve, and Destiny, though it will go on hiatus till 1977 after just 4 issues. Tales of the Ghost also came out that same year with a narrator named Lucian. In 1978, Doorway into Nightmare was published, but only lasted for 5 issues, with the host being Madame Xanadu. It would later be incorporated into the Unexpected. Back with DC, The Phantom Stranger was returned and published in 1969, which featured the return of Dr. 13 as well in Showcase number 80. He will be carried over to The Phantom Stranger in issue number 4, Volume 2, which was started with reprints until that issue. Also from the pages of The Phantom Stranger was Spawn of Frankenstein, who first appeared in issue number 23 about the revived Frankenstein monster. Of course, the most iconic DC horror character would be Swamp Thing in 1972, who first appeared in House of Secrets 92 in July of 1971, created by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson.